Probably. Okay, so what should you do differently then? Well, I think the first thing, and the main thing, is to make a real level. Let me explain. So you've just started making your game. Great, except all you have to show for it is a character on a flat plane that has a few testing elements. So tell me, how do you know if your gameplay is any good? No, like, seriously, how would you know? Your experience in this test level is not going to be similar to the player's experience at all, yet you feel you can judge how good the experience is going to be? Okay, hopefully now you can see my point. To see if the game's any good, you need to make an actual level. This level doesn't have to be good. It doesn't even have to be in the final game. You just need to make a real level so you can actually test your features in it. Don't believe me? Since now they're going to be used in a real scenario. Maybe that double jump is too busted, or the camera doesn't show what it needs to show. Having a real level to test these features in at the beginning of development gives you a chance to tweak things before they've been solidified into your game. And it gives you the opportunity to add features you never thought you would need. And with all this tweaking, you'll be learning what works in your level design and what doesn't work, which will help you a ton in the future. Here's an example from my game Really Fast Rat, playtested on itch for free, link below. When I began developing that game, I never really made a test level in the traditional sense. Everything I designed was as if I was designing the first level of the game. This meant as I was creating the player controller, I was learning how to make levels for the game at the same time. And genuinely, if it wasn't for that level, I wouldn't have any of the levels I have today. When you're making a real level, you're giving purpose to the features by putting them in a real environment. It forces you to think of why something happens rather than what it does, which then helps you focus on what needs to be made. Plus, you get to see how these features interact with each other in a real setting. You might find something you never intended, and that's a good thing. I would have never made the current levels of my game if it weren't for this section of the first level I made. It made me realize how fun it was to dash through longer spaces compared to the tighter spaces the rest of the level had. And another huge reason why this level was so useful was the fact that I could let people test the game while I was still working on the mechanics. User testing is so important in games. At the end of the day, a game is made to be played by people. So if people don't like the game, then what is even the point in making it? But for people to play it, there needs to be something to play. I plan on doing another video on playtesting, so I can talk about it more then. So if you want to see that, like the video to encourage me, and subscribe so YouTube remembers to show it to you. Okay, but I hear you typing with two questions. The first being, why couldn't they just test how the character feels in a test level? You'd rather know if the character controller feels good first before knowing if your level design is any good. The second question being, how can I hear you typing? So to answer the first question, even if you let someone test your character in a test level, what are they supposed to do? A level gives them the context of why the player controls like they do. It also gives them a space to explore and some challenges to try overcome. With user testing, you need there to be some kind of goal. And without this, all they can do is walk around aimlessly. And it can be hard to get feedback on that. To answer the second question, all I'll say is, it's too late to lock your windows and doors. Right, story time. I had to make a website for college once, and when it was done I had to do a live demo with the lecturer. On my site, I made a little forum section where a user could put a username and a message, and when they hit enter it would show up in the list of other messages. So when I was showing it off, I just typed random keys into it showing that it worked, but then I was asked why I had done that, rather than typing a proper username and a proper comment. A proper comment like you should do below, comment below. And at the time, I thought he was just being pedantic. But I thought nothing of it really, and I just did it again, this time putting a proper username and comment. It was only after I thought about it after the demo that I realized it was a valid point. Let me explain. There are two types of testing in games. There's debugging and there's demoing. Debugging is finding technical issues and things that don't work as expected. This is only useful while you are actively developing the game. Demoing is showing off your game, either by you showing gameplay, or letting someone else play it. This is where you get feedback and see if your game is any good. While doing this, people don't need to see how something works. People need to know why. So back to my story. When I filled a comment with gibberish, it didn't show why someone would post it in the forum. It's obvious to me since I made it, but it might not be for someone else seeing it for the first time. However, when I put in a real message, it showed exactly why someone would leave a comment. The same goes for your game. In a test level, you might have a fun dash and jump, but people don't know why to use them unless you show them why. So what should you take away from all this? Well, test levels are good for debugging and taking those early first steps, but ideally you should be making actual levels as soon as possible, even if you plan on changing or removing that level later in development. A game isn't just mechanics, it's how these mechanics actually work together, with a purpose. And with an actual level, you can start to get some crucial playtesting very early on. Trust me, it'll make a difference. Speaking of playtesting, subscribe to see my upcoming video all about playtesting. Trust me, if you've managed to stick around in this video, you're gonna love that video. Remember to like the video and playtest really fast for free in the description. Link below.